Hey everyone, and a huge thanks to Paul Bello, fine fellow over at Lit RPG Reads, for the inspiration for today's deep dive. Paul's recent article on D&D campaign styles really got me thinking about all the different ways you can approach a tabletop RPG. Speaking of different approaches, let's just say, I've had my fair share of interesting tabletop experiences. One time, I was DMing a game for a group of friends, and we were exploring this ancient temple, it was supposed to be. This atmospheric, puzzle-filled dungeon crawl, Indiana Jones vibes. I had spent hours crafting riddles, designing traps, the whole 9 yards. Well, about 10 minutes into the session, our barbarian decides he's bored with puzzles and just wants to smash something. So what does he do? He decides to try and break down the main door to the temple with his bare hands.
Oh no, I can already see where this is going.
Right. I mean, in my head, his door is supposed to be like magically sealed. Ancient dwarven craftsmanship, the whole deal. But I'm also a big believer in letting players make their own choices, even if those choices are questionable. So I let him roll for it. And wouldn't you know it, he rolls a natural 20. I mean, what can you do?
The barbarian bursts through the door, completely bypassing all my carefully crafted puzzles and traps, and the entire dungeon pretty much implodes on itself, narratively speaking.
That's the beauty and the terror of tabletop RPGs, isn't it? You can plan and prepare all you want, but ultimately, the players have the power to shape the story in ways you never could have imagined. Exactly. And that's where having a defined campaign style can be so helpful. It gives you a framework, a set of guidelines for how the story will unfold, even when the players inevitably throw you a curveball. So today we're diving into Paul's article from Lit RPG Reads, published just last week, titled D&D Campaign Ideas, Exploring 6 Unique Campaign Styles for TTRPGs. We're going to break down each of these styles, looking at their strengths, weaknesses, and how they can influence the entire feel of your game. Think of it as a toolbox for DMs, giving you the tools to craft the perfect D&D experience for your group. What's great about this article is that it goes beyond just defining the different styles. It really digs into the nuances of each approach, highlighting the key insights that can help you as a DM, regardless of your experience level.
Right. We're not just going to tell you what a sandbox campaign is. We're going to give you the tools to actually build one that's engaging, exciting for your players. And we'll also talk about those times when a sandbox might not be the best fit and what other options you can consider. It's about understanding the core principles of each style and then applying them to your own unique DMing style and the preferences of your players.
Exactly. So let's start with a style that's near and dear to my heart, the epic campaign. This is the campaign style for players and DMs who dream big, who want to tell stories that span continents, involve world-shaking events, and feature heroes who become legends. Think Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, those sweeping narratives that stay with you long after you've finished reading or watching them.
The allure of the epic campaign lies in its scope and grandeur. It's about creating a world that feels vast and intricate, with a history that stretches back centuries, and a future that hangs in the balance. Your players aren't just adventurers. They're heroes destined to shape the fate of entire nations.
Exactly. And one of the key insights the article highlights is that you don't need a huge budget or years of prep time to create an epic feel in your campaign. You can make even small-scale encounters feel epic by tying them to the larger world-shaking threat.
For instance, imagine your players are clearing out a bandit camp, a pretty standard D&D encounter.
Right.
But what if those bandits are secretly working for a cult that's trying to summon a demon lord into the world, suddenly? That seemingly mundane encounter has much higher stakes.
Right. And you can sprinkle these hints and clues throughout the campaign, slowly revealing the true scope of the threat. Maybe the bandits have strange symbols carved into their weapons, or they mutter about the coming darkness. These little details add a sense of mystery and foreshadowing, building anticipation for those big epic moments to come.
Another key to running a successful epic campaign is striking the right balance between those grand world-saving moments and the personal stories of the player characters.
Absolutely. You don't want the players to feel like they're just cogs in a machine, following the predetermined script. They need to feel like their individual choices and actions matter, that they're shaping the narrative, alongside the larger events unfolding around them.
The article suggests having those personal character arcs woven into the main plot, for instance. Maybe one of your players is a paladin whose family was slaughtered by the very cult that's trying to summon the demon lord. Now, they have a personal vendetta. That aligns with the larger goal of saving the world.
I love that. It adds an extra layer of emotional investment for the players. They're not just fighting for some abstract concept of good versus evil. They're fighting for something deeply personal, something that directly affects their characters' lives.
And that's what makes epic campaigns so compelling. They have that grand sweeping scope, but they're also grounded in the personal struggles and triumphs of the characters we come to know and love.
All right, so we've talked about the epic campaign, which is all about those big predefined narratives. But what if you and your players are more interested in the style that's a little more unpredictable? That's where the open campaign comes in.
Think of an open campaign as a vast, uncharted wilderness, ripe for exploration. Instead of having a fixed plot line, the story emerges organically from the player's choices and actions. You're not so much a storyteller as you are a world builder, creating a space for your players to tell their own stories.
It's like giving your players a set of Legos and saying, go build something awesome.
Exactly. And the beauty of this approach is that you never quite know what they're going to come up with.
And that can be a little terrifying for some DMs.
Right.
You're basically giving up control of the narrative and letting the players take the reins.
It definitely requires a different mindset. You need to be comfortable with improvisation, with thinking on your feet, and with being okay with your carefully laid plans going completely out the window.
Which, let's be honest, happens in pretty much every D&D game, regardless of the campaign style.
True, but with an open campaign, it's not just something you tolerate, it's something you embrace.
So how do you actually go about running an open campaign? The article mentions that it requires a lot of prep work, but it's a different kind of prep than what you do for, say, an epic campaign.
Exactly. Instead of planning out a specific plot, you're focusing on building a world that feels dynamic and responsive to player choices. You need to think about things like the political landscape, the economic systems, the social hierarchies, the cultures and religions of the different regions. You're creating a living, breathing world with its own internal logic.
So it's like setting the stage for a play, but letting the actors decide what the story is going to be.
That's a great analogy. You're providing the setting, the characters, the conflicts, but the players are the ones who drive the action. Now, this doesn't mean you just sit back and let the players do whatever they want. You still have a vital role as the dungeon master. You're the referee, the narrator, the guide.
So you're kind of like a jazz musician, riffing off the melody the players are creating.
Precisely. You need to be able to improvise, to adapt to the players' choices, and to weave their actions into a compelling narrative. The article emphasizes that one of the most important skills for running an open campaign is being able to say yes and to your players.
So if my barbarian player suddenly decides he wants to challenge the king to a wrestling match, I shouldn't just shut that down.
Not necessarily. Instead of saying, no, you can't do that, here, you say yes and here. Yes, you can challenge the king to a wrestling match and hampaso. The entire court is gathered to watch, and the king's champion is a hulking half-orc who's never been defeated, and you build on the player's idea, adding details and complications that make the situation even more interesting.
I could see how that would keep the players engaged. It makes them feel like their choices have real weight, that they can truly influence the world around them. But I imagine it can also be pretty challenging for the DM to keep up.
It definitely takes practice. The article recommends having a toolbox of resources at your disposal, random encounter tables, NPC generators, maps of the region, anything that can help you generate content on the fly. But ultimately, the key to running a successful open campaign is to trust your players and to embrace the unpredictable nature of collaborative storytelling. Now, speaking of collaborative storytelling, let's talk about a campaign style. That puts the focus squarely on the players themselves. The player campaign.
Yes. The player campaign. This is where the players' backstories and personal goals take center stage. Instead of having a predetermined plot, the campaign revolves around the characters themselves, their relationships, their secrets, their ambitions. It's like a character-driven drama, where each player gets to be the star of their own story.
And what's fascinating about this style is that it requires a deep level of collaboration between the players and the DM right from the start. During character creation, the players work together, brainstorming backstories that are intertwined, creating a web of relationships and shared histories.
So it's not just about coming up with a cool character concept. It's about thinking about how that character fits into the larger world and how their story connects with the stories of the other players.
Exactly. The players' backstories become the seeds for future plot points, adventures, and conflicts. A rivalry that began in childhood might resurface years later, or a shared secret could come back to haunt the characters.
I love the idea of the campaign organically growing out of the characters themselves. It's like you're all planting these seeds together, and then you get to watch them blossom into something amazing. But
Yeah.
how does the DM actually structure a player campaign? Is there still a central plot or overarching goal, or is it more free-flowing?
That's where the DM's skill comes in. They need to be able to weave those individual character threads into a cohesive narrative, finding ways to connect those personal stories to larger events or conflicts. Maybe one player wants to uncover the truth about their family's past, while another is seeking revenge against a corrupt official. The DM can then create a scenario where those two goals intersect, leading to a shared adventure that advances both characters' stories.
That's a great example. It shows how you can have those personal narratives driving the action, while still creating a sense of unity and purpose for the group. I imagine it also helps with character development, because the players are constantly facing challenges that force them to confront their pasts, their fears, their motivations.
Absolutely. It's a very character-driven approach, where the focus is on exploring the depths of those personalities and seeing how they evolve over time. The article highlights a key insight here, that the DM should constantly be looking for opportunities to tie player decisions back to their characters' backstories. This creates a sense of consequence and makes the players feel like their choices truly matter.
So if a player makes a decision that goes against their character's established personality or beliefs, the DM might use that as an opportunity to explore what caused that shift in behavior.
Exactly. Maybe the character is wrestling with a moral dilemma, or perhaps they're being influenced by a powerful outside force. These moments of internal conflict can be some of the most compelling and memorable parts of a campaign.
Okay, so we've talked about epic campaigns, which are all about those grand sweeping narratives, and open campaigns, which give players the freedom to shape the story. And we've just explored player campaigns, which delves into the characters' backstories and personal goals. Now let's talk about a style that's all about realism, a style that strives to create a world that feels truly believable, even if that world is filled with magic and monsters. I'm talking about the Simulationist Campaign.
The Simulationist Campaign, the realm of hardcore rule followers and world-building fanatics. This style is not for the faint of heart. It requires a deep understanding of the game mechanics, a meticulous attention to detail, and a willingness to let the dice fall where they may.
So this is for the DMs who love spreadsheets, who track the weather patterns and economic fluctuations of their fantasy world, who know the exact population density of every village, and the trade routes between major cities.
You got it. They delight in creating a world that operates according to consistent logic and consequences. If the players disrupt a trade route, prices will rise in nearby towns. If they slay a powerful monster, that was keeping a local ecosystem in check. The environment will be affected.
It's about creating a world that feels alive, that reacts to the players' actions in a believable way. I can see how that would be incredibly immersive for the players, but I imagine it would also be a lot of work for the DM to keep track of all those details.
It's a challenge, for sure. The article suggests using tools, like World Anvil and the Dungeon Master's Guide, to help manage all that information. But it also stresses that the most important ingredient for a successful simulationist campaign is a deep understanding of the world's internal logic. The DM needs to be able to think about the ripple effects of player actions, to anticipate the consequences of their choices, and to adjust the world accordingly.
So if the players decide to assassinate a powerful noble, the DM needs to be prepared for the potential political fallout, the economic repercussions, the social unrest that might ensue. It's like playing a grand strategy game on top of running a role-playing game.
That's a great way to put it. The simulationist DM is constantly thinking several steps ahead, anticipating the consequences of player actions, and adjusting the world accordingly. But the payoff can be immense when players feel like their choices have real weight, that their actions can truly change the course of history. It elevates the entire game experience.
I can imagine those moments of, oh, wow, didn't think about that. When the players realize the true scope of their actions, it creates a sense of awe and wonder, of being part of something much larger than themselves.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of the Simulationist Campaign. It's about creating a world that feels both believable and unpredictable, a world where actions have consequences, and the players are truly shaping the course of history.
Okay, so we've got these meticulously crafted worlds, intricate storylines, but what happens when you just want to throw all that out the window and embrace pure chaos? That's where the accidental campaign comes in.
Yes, the accidental campaign. A style that's near and dear to my heart. It's all about improvisation, spontaneity, and letting those unexpected player decisions drive the narrative. It's like saying yes and to every crazy idea your players come up with, and then somehow weaving it all into a cohesive and entertaining story.
I remember one time I was running a game where the players were supposed to be infiltrating this evil wizard's lair.
Well,
We got sidetracked trying to train a group of squirrels.
to perform a circus act. Oh no. Did the squirrels end up foiling the wizard's plans?
You know it. They ended up causing a distraction. That allowed the party to sneak into the lair and steal the wizard's spellbook. It was completely unplanned. But it made for one of the most memorable sessions we ever had.
That's the magic of the accidental campaign. You never know what's going to happen. It's all about embracing the unpredictable and turning those unexpected moments into opportunities for storytelling gold.
The article mentions that while the accidental campaign might seem like it's all about making things up as you go along, there's still a certain level of preparation involved. It's not just about winging it entirely.
Right. You still need to have a solid foundation, a basic understanding of the world, its history, its cultures, and the forces at play. But instead of planning out a specific storyline, you're creating a framework, a set of guidelines that allow you to improvise and adapt to the player's choices.
So it's kind of like having a recipe, but being willing to substitute ingredients based on what you have on hand.
Exactly. You might have a general idea of where you want the story to go, but you're also open to detours and unexpected ingredients. The key is to be flexible, adaptable, and to trust your instincts as a storyteller.
The article also mentions that the accidental campaign can be a great way to get new players into D&D because it's so forgiving. There's less pressure to follow a rigid plotline and more freedom to experiment and explore.
Absolutely. It's a great way to introduce new players to the core mechanics of the game without overwhelming them with complex rules or intricate storylines. Plus, it allows them to see how their choices can directly impact the narrative, which can be incredibly empowering.
So, we've got these campaigns that range from epic world-spanning adventures to chaotic squirrel-infested escapades. But what if you're looking for something a little more laid back, a style that's perfect for casual groups or players with busy schedules? That's where the Glide campaign comes in.
Right. The Glide campaign is all about ease of play and accessibility. It's the perfect choice for groups who might not have a lot of time for gaming or who just want a more relaxed D&D experience. It's about enjoying the core elements of the game: combat, exploration, role-playing, without getting bogged down in complex narratives or intense character development.
So it's like the easy listening version of D&D.
Exactly. It's about keeping things simple and fun. The article suggests using modular self-contained adventures that can be easily slotted into the campaign, like a series of monster hunting contracts or missions to explore uncharted territories. It's about providing a satisfying gameplay experience without requiring a huge time commitment from either the players or the DM.
I could see how this would be appealing to a lot of groups, especially those who might have other commitments or who are just starting out with D&D. But doesn't it run the risk of feeling repetitive or lacking in depth?
That's a valid concern. The key is to find ways to keep things fresh and engaging. You can do this by introducing recurring NPCs, creating a sense of continuity between adventures, or weaving in elements of a larger overarching story. Maybe those monster hunting contracts are all tied to a secret organization, or those exploration missions are slowly revealing a hidden truth about the world.
So, even in a Glide campaign, you can still create a sense of mystery and intrigue. It's just about doing it in a way that's manageable and doesn't require a ton of prep time.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot between simplicity and depth, between accessibility and engagement.
So, we've explored 6 unique campaign styles, each with its own strengths, weaknesses, and ideal player base. But how do you choose the right style for your group? What factors should you consider?
The article highlights a few key considerations. The first is your players' preferences. What kind of stories are they interested in telling? What level of challenge are they looking for? What are their gaming schedules like?
Right. You don't want to force a group of hardcore role players into a combat-heavy dungeon crawl or try to run an epic world-spanning campaign with a group that can only meet once a month.
Exactly. Communication is key. Talk to your players. Get a sense of what they're looking for in a campaign and try to choose a style that aligns with their interests and availability. Another important factor is your own DMing style. What are you comfortable with? What are your strengths and weaknesses?
Right. If you're a master of improvisation, an accidental campaign might be right up your alley. But if you prefer to have things planned out in advance, you might be better suited to a more structured style, like an epic campaign or a player campaign.
And don't be afraid to experiment. You can always try out different styles, blend elements from different approaches, or even switch things up mid-campaign. if it's not working for your group. The most important thing is to have fun and to create a gaming experience that everyone enjoys.
I love that emphasis on flexibility and experimentation. There's no right or wrong answer. When it comes to choosing a campaign style, it's all about finding what works best for you and your players. The article even mentions that some of the most successful campaigns are the ones that defy categorization, that blend elements from multiple styles to create something truly unique.
Absolutely. The best D&D campaigns are the ones that feel like living, breathing worlds, where the players are active participants in the storytelling process, where anything is possible, and where the journey is just as important as the destination.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into D&D campaign styles. I want to give a huge shout out to Paul Bello, fine fella, for writing such a thought-provoking and insightful article. It's given me a lot to think about, as both a player and a DM.
It's a testament to the enduring power of tabletop RPGs. They offer a unique blend of storytelling, imagination, and social interaction that you just can't find anywhere else. And as we've explored today, there's a campaign style out there for everyone, whether you're a seasoned veteran or a wide-eyed newcomer.
So true. So go forth, fellow adventurers, and create some amazing stories. Experiment with different campaign styles. Find what works best for you and your group, and never be afraid to embrace the unexpected.
Until next time, and happy gaming.
And a final thanks to Paul Bello, fine fellow, over at Lin RPG Reads. You rock.